You used to buy the things that shaped your life. Now you rent the permission to use them. Your tools, your car features, your storage, your entertainment, your home. And the strange part is, it does not feel like losing ownership. It feels like convenience. There is a strange kind of wealth trap happening right now. People are not only struggling because they earn too little. Many are struggling because the money they earn no longer turns into ownership. It turns into access. At first, access feels smart. Why pay the full price today when you can pay a little every month? But that logic becomes dangerous when it stops being one payment and becomes the structure of your entire life. Your income keeps coming in, your lifestyle looks better, but your ownership barely grows. That is why someone can make 6 figures and still feel like they are standing on rented ground. The American dream didn't die. It was converted into a monthly payment, your home. And the strange part is, it does not feel like losing ownership. It feels like convenience. This is not really about Netflix. That is the easy version of the conversation. The real shift is that companies stopped trying to sell you things once and started trying to charge you forever. When you buy something, the transaction ends. When you subscribe, the relationship keeps going. That is not just a pricing change, it is a power shift. Ownership gives control to the customer. Access keeps control with the company. McKinsey described why subscriptions are so attractive to businesses. They can create stability, increase customer spending, deepen the relationship, and turn one purchase into an ongoing connection. In simple words, the company does not just want a sale, it wants a relationship it can monetize repeatedly, and once that became obvious, the model spread. Software was one of the clearest warnings. In the old model, professional software was something you bought. It could become outdated. A better version could appear, but the version you bought still belonged to you. Then the model changed. In 2013, Adobe announced that future versions of its Creative Suite tools would move through Creative Cloud. For many creatives, the backlash was not just about price, it was about dependence. Because when your work depends on a tool, canceling is not just canceling. It can mean losing the gateway to your own productivity. That was the signal. Do not only sell the tool, control the gateway, then charge rent for the gateway. Adobe did not just change software pricing. It revealed a new kind of customer relationship, one where the product never fully leaves the company's control. Then the same logic moved into physical things. A car used to be something you bought. Now it is also a software platform. Reuters reported that Stellantis targeted about 20 billion euros in additional annual revenue by 2030 from software-related products and subscriptions. The company also expected tens of millions of connected vehicles on the road by then. That number reveals the direction. The car is not only the product anymore. The driver becomes part of the revenue model after the sale. You may own the physical object, but if the company controls the software layer, the connected services, the updates, and the feature access, then ownership becomes less absolute. You bought the car, but parts of the experience can still be rented back to you. That is the new economy. Sell the object once, then keep monetizing the relationship around it. And the largest version of this trap is housing. Rent is access without accumulation. You pay every month. You get shelter, but the payment does not become equity. It disappears into someone else's asset. And this did not happen in a vacuum. Home prices rose sharply after 2019. Mortgage rates moved higher, supply stayed tight, and many existing homeowners became locked into older, low-rate mortgages, making it harder for new buyers to enter the market. So more people stay renters longer. Harvard's Joint Center for Housing Studies reported that in 2024, There were 22.7 million cost-burdened renter households in the United States. That means nearly half of renters were spending more than 30% of their income on rent and utilities. At the same time, the door into ownership keeps moving further away. The National Association of Realtors reported that first-time buyers fell to a record low, only 21% of home buyers. And the typical first-time buyer age reached 40. That is not just a housing statistic, it is a wealth statistic. Because housing was one of the main ways the American middle class built ownership. A mortgage was expensive, but part of it could become equity. Rent does not work that way. A renter can pay perfectly for 10 years and still own none of the building. That is the difference between use and ownership. Use solves today, ownership changes tomorrow, and more of modern life is being moved into the first category. So the pattern is not complicated. Software became access, cars became platforms, housing became harder to own, and subscriptions became the default language of modern life. The problem is not that every subscription is bad. The problem is that more of your income is being converted into temporary permission instead of lasting control. That is why someone can earn more, live better, and still feel financially weaker than expected. The money is moving, but it is not accumulating. It is keeping doors open. It is not building the house. The model works because small payments reduce resistance. A large price makes you stop and think. A small monthly payment feels harmless. That is why people underestimate the total. West Monroe found that consumers were spending an average of $273 per month on subscription services, up from $237 in 2018. But the more important finding was not only the amount, it was the invisibility. Consumers were still unaware of how much they were actually spending. That is the psychological engine of the model. A recurring payment does not feel like debt, but it behaves like a soft claim on your next paycheck. Before the money arrives, part of it is already spoken for. That is why the subscription trap is so efficient. It does not need one dramatic mistake. It only needs payments small enough to ignore and automatic enough to continue. This is especially dangerous for high earners who are not rich yet. They have income, they have options, their lifestyle looks upgraded. But the real question is not how modern the lifestyle looks. The real question is what remains if the payments stop. That is where many people discover the difference between access and wealth. Access lets you use something. Ownership gives you a claim. Access can disappear. Ownership remains on the balance sheet. This is why a high income can still feel fragile. The money is not only being spent, it is being converted into temporary access instead of lasting control. The old middle class bought assets slowly. The new middle class rents lifestyle instantly. And that trade can feel like progress until you measure what is actually yours. The villain is not Adobe. It is not Netflix. It is not Jeep. It is not your landlord. The villain is the model, a model built on one idea. Ownership makes people independent. Access makes them recurring. Ownership ends the transaction. Access extends it. Ownership builds wealth. Access maintains a lifestyle. Your parents were sold ownership. You were sold access. And access was designed to expire. So the answer is not to cancel everything. That is too simple. Some subscriptions are useful. Some tools help you earn more. Some services save time. The point is not to reject access. The point is to understand what kind of access you are buying. Before keeping any recurring payment, ask one question. What does this payment leave behind? If it builds a skill, increases earning power, protects time, or creates leverage, it may be a tool. If it only preserves an image, avoids discomfort, or maintains a lifestyle that disappears the second you stop paying. It may be a trap. That is the ownership test. A tool leaves something behind. A trap only asks for another payment, because wealth is not what you can access. Wealth is what remains when the payments stop. So the next time a payment looks small, do not only ask if you can afford it. Ask what it is turning you into, an owner or a renter of your own life. Because the future will not ask how many things you could access. It will ask how much of your life was actually yours. If this message resonated with you, hit the like button. And if you want to see what the system isn't designed to explain, subscribe. The game doesn't change, but when you understand the rules, you can finally start to win. Insight Re Money.